WEBurlesque podcast. I am your host, Viktor Devonne, and today I am sitting with BonTemps, who is a fabulous performer, producer, and drag presence in the great land of New York City. And I'm very excited to talk to you. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Victor?
I'm doing well. It is a chilly but sunny Sunday afternoon that I'm talking to you at, and I'm just waiting for spring to finally make up its mind, as my sinuses have let me know that they're going to keep fucking with me until they're done.
I'm so excited for spring to be sprung, if you will.
Mm-hmm. I will.
That means that all my slutty clothing doesn't have to be like hidden under large jackets. Maybe just a modest sweater,
just for layering.
Exactly.
So I don't quite recall. I think probably the first time we worked together was at Bazaar, but it could have been any number of shows, as you have made your way through quite a few.
Yes, that's true. I do feel like our first time working together. So it would have been WEBurlesque, because they had the beef show takeover, but of course we had the takeover because you weren't there. After that, I assume it was a beef show. I feel like that sounds right.
Where do you originally hail from? Are you a New Yorker?
No, I'm Orlando, actually.
Okay.
I worked at Pulse. I worked at what is now called Southern Nights.
Oh, wow.
In Orlando as well. And then I did some work with the venue, which is Blue Stars venue in Orlando. It's a little bit different than New York. Everything filters through about 4 different clubs, and if you're working, you're only working at those 4 different places.
Understood.
Yeah.
What was your job there at Pulse specifically?
Pulse, I was just a performer. I was a performer.
Nice.
That's where I started like proper with drag at 18 years old in Tampa, Florida. And
without giving too much away, roughly how long ago was that?
I don't mind. I am a pristine and spring chicken age of 24.
Okay.
And I started when I was 18, so it's been 6 years.
Yeah.
It'll go on 7 this year. So at 18, that's when I started. Well, really, I started at 17 because we had a Hamburger Mary. For anybody who doesn't know, it's like a drag restaurant. Basically, it's a chain of restaurants, and we have like 3 or 4 in Florida, all like at large. But we had one in Tampa specifically, where I did my first drag show at 17.
What was your drag identity like when you first started?
I was strictly a drag king. And I was strictly a drag king until 20, in which I started doing burlesque, and that has now eventually evolved into like just a drag something or other. But yeah, I was strictly a drag king, and oh god, at that time I had I'm sure it was some sort of internalized misogyny, internalized not transphobia, but just trans scared. I didn't know what it meant, so I was just like, women or AFAB individuals cannot be drag queens, so I have to be a drag king if I want to do drag. Even though I was pretty set that wasn't my main identity, I was just kind of if I want to do drag, this is how people will let me do drag.
Why was it important to do drag? What was the because I would assume that for a lot of people, as a gender expression, to go in one direction or the other or all around, that there is I guess a mindset that something isn't being either fulfilled or you just want to feel extra fabulous. So how do you feel fabulous if you were denying queen attributes? how did it all come together?
So at the time, I can answer this in a couple parts. So why drag, first of all, is like, for me personally, I started watching Drag Race when I was 13 years old. And at that point, like the moment I saw a drag queen on TV, I was kind of like, oh my God, like I need to, you know what I mean? And so I had grown up, because I feel like 13 to 16 is pretty formative, even though people younger than that is even formative. But like, honestly, that point in time was super formative for me as a queer person specifically.
When you start looking at things analytically, really.
Exactly. So at that point, I was like getting into it, and I was like religiously watching this crazy ass show, which forms in your mind at that time what drag looks like, because obviously you're not going to clubs at 13 years old. You're just watching things happen where you can get them. And so at that point I was like, oh my God, this is something that has to just be a part of my life or happen in my life or da-da-da-da-da. So when I was getting into an age, and I went to a performing arts high school, when I did get to an age where I could perform my own stuff and like could go to clubs, and I was like able to see drag shows, I was like, oh shit, I can do this. And not only that, I had recently found this drag king, Spiky Van Dyke, at the time. I was like, oh, you can do it the other way around. So I was like, okay. And this is, again, when I'm pretending to be a woman as well. So everything is kind of binary in my mind.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I can do it the other way around. Awesome. Amazing. So in order to feel like I was part of this thing, where I was also in the middle of a lot of rhetoric that was saying, I was in the middle of a lot of rhetoric that was kind of putting down femme queens and bio queens or hyper queens, or however you may identify it in that realm. So I was just like, I can't do that because people won't like me. So yeah, in order to be part of the community I was seeing, I had to be a drag king. And I was like, okay, cool. So I put all my eggs in that basket. I got a suit. I figured out my first song. I did all this stuff. And I was like, okay, cool, we're doing this. So yeah. And to your question about like, how can you feel fabulous at that point without, while kind of having all this stuff ringing in your head, you sort of can't entirely embrace that. Like, look, obviously hindsight is 20/20. At the time, I would have told you I was the best fucking performer ever.
Because of course.
You can't fucking tell me anything. It's like, I've got my suit on, like I'm doing all the right things. Like, what do you mean? First performance, of course I'm perfect. But you can't really embrace everything if you're not doing exactly what you want to be doing. And maybe I couldn't figure that out at the time, which I probably was. That was probably more the conversation, is like, I was coming to terms with a trans identity. I was coming to terms with I came out around the same time as I started performing too. Like, I started to kind of.
You wanted to do everything all at once.
It was like between the ages of 18 and 19, I just like really rammed right into identity crisis. It was insane. I've had like 4 to 5 different drag names, so many personas, so many.
Oh, what were some of them? Do you mind saying?
Oh, no, not at all. My first drag name was Montague Carter.
Ooh.
Which was my grandmother's maiden name and my proper last name. And then my next one was Carter Infinity, because I joined the House of Infinity after my second drag performance. I had like been going to shows and stuff, and so I had kind of made friends and family with a few of the Infinities of the like Central Florida Infinities. So I became an Infinity, dropping the Montague. And then after that, when I moved to Orlando and it sort of became not feasible for me to be an Infinity anymore, which we still had Orlando Infinities, but I just wasn't able to, you know, participate in the way that I needed to. So I kind of decided that I would part ways with the Infinities on good terms. They're all still my friends. I definitely regard them as family, but then I dropped that. And so I was, what was my last name after that? There was a point where I was still using Infinity, like in between that time and finding another last name. I was still like Carter Infinity for a minute. And then I was Carter Static, which is when me and a friend of mine had decided that we were just going to start a drag house for no apparent reason. And so we were the House Aesthetic. Very clever. We tried really hard. And then when I moved, I dropped. So I had two names at that point because I had like a mask persona and a femme persona, and my other one was Hair Aesthetic, which is what my email is. So it was like Her Aesthetic. So I had those two names at that time. And then once I moved to New York, I just completely exited. Oh, hold on. Let's wait for this nice siren to pass.
It's just some city color right there.
Yeah, exactly. But after that passed, when I moved here, I decided, you know what, fuck it. I'm getting a whole new name.
So where did C'était BonTemps come from?
Funny story. So C'était BonTemps, so there was this Tumblr that I followed where everything originates. There was this Tumblr I followed. There's this artist, I can remember her name at some point, but there's this artist that has this character that I really loved, and their name was like Bon something. It was like Bon Nui or something like that, and I was like, oh my god, I love this I love this character. It's like this brown centaur or succubus situation, and I was like, that's
otherworldly.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's, I mean, yes, thank you so much. This is wonderful. And I actually asked the artist, I was like, hey, because I felt weird just taking the name. You know, you could just, like, when it's random words like that, you could just take it and not tell anybody and nobody would care. You know what I mean? Nobody would be the wiser. But I felt weird because it was specifically from this character. I asked her if I could take the name of her character. And she was like, I don't really want that to be a thing. Could you not? And so I was like, and then afterwards I thought about it. I was like, oh, I could have just, but I didn't. And
so you never followed the rules again.
Exactly. But I didn't take the name. And so I came up with this like variation. I was like, what's the way to like make my name vaguely French and also a nod to this character that I was so inspired by? And then I came up with C'était BonTemps, which in French means it was a good time. So it was a very apt name. Ultimately, it just took a little.
It's also a past tense, isn't it? It's not. It's not. It's a good time. It was a good time.
Yeah, it was a good time, and I say it all the time when people ask me about this. They're like, "Why wouldn't you just say it is a good time?" And I was like, "Well, it is a good time after you think about it a little bit more." Because my acts are so like they're either really cathartic or really deep or like weird. So I'm always just like, you have to think about it a little bit. You have to sit with it. And so it was a good time after you think about it a little bit.
So these acts that you were doing in Southern Nights and Pulse, what were they like? What were some of the acts like?
Oh my gosh, that was a time in my life in which I don't think I've actually ever revisited early career acts because they are so, like, not my aesthetic at this point. They were super top 40 or very, like, upbeat, super, like, charged acts because that's what gets you paid in Orlando and that's what gets you booked. Not that I got booked a lot, really.
But they needed energy. They needed, like, energetic performances.
Exactly. Yeah. They needed you to, like, jump around and, like, or, like, get people up. Like, because for a drag king, you know, a drag queen, you can look really pretty and really stunning and give, like, this really gorgeous, like, top 40 ballad, and people will just lose their fucking minds. But as a drag king, you had to really finesse the audience into liking you. So that's what was needed, was either very, like, prescient and on the pulse numbers or something that people, like, knew, like a oldie but a goodie, you know.
What were some of the songs that you would do? Who were some of the artists?
My first song, do you remember the movie Idlewild?
Yeah.
With Outkast? Yeah. So I did the closing credit song.
Ooh, that's a good one, yeah.
Yeah, and I would redo that song. I would redo that now. I think
it's really more of an Andre 3000 solo, but it's like a big grand, yeah.
Yeah, it's like very, like, and it's like word heavy too, and I, like, knew every word, and I was really chewing on those lyrics, so everybody was really, that was like a signature song for me for a while. It won me my first drag competition, actually.
Oh, very nice. What was your title?
It was You Did Great at Hamburger Mary.
Do they fit that all in a sash?
Yeah, exactly. It's all in a sash, a very, like, real and great plaque, and a nice $50 tab to buy yourself some food. Which, you get what you get. And then my second ever drag number was actually something that's more on my, like, more my gig now, and it's Mark Ronson and the International featuring Boy George. I can't remember the name. It's like Somebody to Love Me or something like that, and it's this it's like this very
Somebody to Love Me. That's it.
Yeah, it's like this very cool, very sweet song, kind of melodramatic naturally, but I did it and I was, like, in this, like, kind of pseudo Boy George get up, or what I could afford at the age of 18, you know what I mean? And I, like, did this very deep number about my trans feelings, which ultimately just meant that I took my shirt off at the end of the number and showed that I was duct taped down. So, which was the breadth of my, my internal monologue at the moment. So yeah, I did that. That's what I won my second competition with, which was really fun. I got booked. I got a whole $50 at another club to do an act, which was amazing.
I've been to Hamburger Mary's in California because I split my time here between the East Coast and the West Coast. And besides the fact that Hamburger Mary's is sort of, at least there, in my mind, sort of tourist drag. It's very, let's bring in the bachelorette parties. It's very, it's very, let's hit all the beats so that this very straight audience has a sense of, all of the, it's like bingo. Like, it's just like, let's just try to hit every nod. I'm not sure. I'm curious, but it also has become, like, super Drag Race infused. So as someone who grew up watching Drag Race at a formative time, did you end up ever working with anybody who you had seen on TV that you were like, look at me, my co-stars?
Yes. I won this competition my, I guess, drag grandmother put on, called Queen of the Night, put on by Power Infinity. And you won a gig if you won it. And I got to do a show with Manila Luzon.
Ooh.
Which was very cool.
Was she nice?
Yeah, she was sweet. She did my eyebrows.
Oh, okay.
It was really cute. And at the time, I was going to so many shows. Like, I was out, like, almost every night, especially the summer between high school and college, which I turned 18 that summer. I had turned 18 that summer, just before that summer, so I was able to, like, go out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was meeting everybody, and I was meeting everybody multiple times. So they all knew me. Like, I didn't work with some of them, but they all knew me. So, like,
you're a presence.
I'm sure I was a presence indeed. And, you know, the only way that a club would get packed like a gay club would get packed on the Strip, on Ybor in Tampa, was if you brought a root girl.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's still happening.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, my grandmother was one of the event coordinators at, like, my main club, so, which was Liquid, now defunct, R.I.P. Liquid. So I got to go backstage, and I got to talk to these people, and I got, like, first in line for meet and greets and all this shit, because everybody knew me, and my drag grandmother was, like, DJing and shit. So it was a thing. And, like, I'm sure even now, if I like walked up to Willem, she would be like, "Hey, girl," you know, she'd be like, "Oh, now I know you." I don't know if she would remember my name, but, like, they would recognize. Some of them would recognize me, which was cute. It was a cute time. Like, honestly, that was, like, my little summer of love.
What's it like to work at a bar as an 18-year-old? I would imagine that there's some intimidation there, or even some temptation. But are they extra strict with you because you're underage, or?
They could trust me because I was a goody two shoes as well, and I didn't want to get kicked out. And once I became part of a family, I was like, "Oh shit!"
You had that responsibility. Yeah,
exactly. If I get in trouble, they're gonna be like, I'm gonna get in mad trouble. So I never pushed my luck that way. Not in Tampa. In Orlando, I was a little like, I'm here, whatever. I did some underage drinking, as most do, but I wasn't dumb, so I didn't get caught.
You never got messy.
Exactly. Like, I wasn't out there getting, like, mad drunk, because I feel like that would have been obviously terrible.
It wasn't what you were there for. Yeah, it's part of the it's part of the, you know, the buffet, but it's not what you were there for.
Precisely. Yeah.
When you were creating your acts, how involved would you call it a house? You called it a family, but the House of Infinity, was that? I think a lot of people have an association with the most obvious, which is Paris is Burning, or the Davenports, or you know, any of these the Andrews, these legendary houses that they sort of seem where that you get to have your own identity, but there's a lot of influence from your elders and from your fam. Mm-hmm. How individualized were you able to be, or did everything have to go through an approval process, or?
So my house was a little bit different. So what you get in houses, so like two of the houses you mentioned, the Andrews and the Davenports. Now I'm not as familiar with the Davenports, but I've had like direct dealings with like Axel Andrews and Rocky.
Right, because they're Florida.
Yeah, exactly. Axel, actually, I went through Axel for most of the talent nights that I did when I lived in Orlando. So those are more performance houses. Davenports might walk as well. I'm not really sure exactly what their main like gig is, but it seems like it's more performance. But there's really like two sides to that. So like a performance house, I'm sure that they have plenty of like conversation about acts and like how you're going to do them and why you're going to do them, or like if you do them, this is what that means, blah, 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 blah. For like strictly, and not necessarily strictly, but mostly ball houses, they will have performers in them naturally, because walking a ball is a performance ultimately. But the main focus is winning trophies at a ball. So when you have those moments at like a house meeting or something like that, you're talking about what categories you're going to walk. You're talking about like how you're going to walk them. You're talking about what that means for you, especially if you're new. And to continue in that house, at least for the infinities, to continue in that house, you have to be available to walk balls and do balls consistently. So as far as my like drag persona went, I did ask and communicate with my like elder drag family, but it was pretty individual because everything I did was very like on me to do, unless it had something to do with the ball, in which case that is an approval process. Like if you walk this, you have to do this, and if like I couldn't just walk a ball if I wanted to. Everybody needed to be like, yes, you can walk this ball. From like my mother to the grandmother to like the father, all of these people would have to be like, yes, you can do that.
Did you ever snatch a trophy?
No, I didn't.
What were some of the categories you walked?
I wasn't there long enough to do a lot, but I walked runway. I did lip sync, naturally. And then I was working towards hands voguing, but I never got quite good enough to walk that category.
Now, when you do something like runway or hands or something like that, do you have someone in the house who either takes on a mentorship role or, I don't know, is sort of like the ambassador of that section?
Sort of. So there are people so you have like your mother and your father. Like I had my mother, she was more an act. Like she's a person I would go to like vet my acts more so. And then I had a father. He did European runway and big boy runway, and so he taught me the ropes on. For me, I was trying to walk European runway, and then later on, I did American.
Was it Mother Christina?
Sashay Infinity. Her name is Sashay Infinity. But I don't even know if she's part of the house anymore. She might be Sashay something else at this point. And then my father was London Infinity, which he's not part of the house anymore, as far as I know. But we still keep in contact.
Is it INFINTII or is it Y?
One I.
One I. I'm trying to do my research while we're talking just to see.
You're due.
Well, it's interesting because I think especially because of Drag Race definitely brought it to a larger audience, and now we have Pose, and it's just sort of, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I know Rue mentions Paris is Burning in season 1 because they do the Vogue off. Then they eventually do the reading challenge, which they also say is influenced by Paris is Burning. But most of the quotes and the references are completely unattributed when Rue says them or if any of the girls say them. You just sort of have to know that's what they're referring to. And that's true of a lot of references that they make on that show. There are a lot of movie references and a lot of cultural stuff. Like oh, I saw the pantyhose and it was ripped. Like there's you have to know what that is. What is your thought on this sort of capitalization of ball culture and it being really it honoring the past while sort of
co-opting it?
Yeah. What's your thoughts on this?
So let's hit on RuPaul's Drag Race.
Sure.
I have a multitude of grievances with that show.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't even watched it for at least 4 seasons until I got booked for a RuPaul's Drag Race viewing party this week. So I was like, oh shit, I should probably know what I'm talking about when I get in there. Which it could be part of the bit, who knows, but I should at least know a little bit about it. But I feel like because there's been 11 seasons plus All Stars at this point, people feel like they have some sort of authority over what things look like.
Mm-hmm.
And they're sorely mistaken.
Mm.
And as much as I love that there's this huge craving for drag and to know more about drag and different pieces of queer culture, I feel like there's not enough history given in what's presented or enough context given in what is presented for people to grasp the gravity or the huge expanse of what any of it means. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I love it and I hate it all at the same time. And I think specifically for ball culture, a lot of people are like, the be-all, end-all is Paris is Burning, which, as beautiful as that film is, it's made by a white director just kind of coming in and being like, I'm going to film this thing, and
rather passively at that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm just going to, I'm just going to present this information as I find it.
I think one plus in that direction is that she allows the personality to be authentic. All of it comes from the subjects. She doesn't, none of those people probably got paid, and none of those people probably got much from it other than, legendary status.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the very least, it's their words. There's not a lot of editing, at least as far as I can tell, as someone who has watched it, and I have my own connection with it as a non-trans person. But as someone who is, I don't know, figuring some stuff out still, I think it's still a joyful film at the very least, even though some terrible things happen during it. And like there's like I remember like there's one like specific like car crash moment where where it just screeches to a halt when it's revealed that Venus Extravaganza was killed during filming, and it's just sort of like, wow, okay. And it's I think what's so powerful about it is that about that moment particularly is that even like the figures in the film, I don't want to say characters because that they're not characters, but the people that are being interviewed are just sort of like, and that's the way it is, and we're all very sad, but that's the way it is. And that's sort of it is a gut punch. It is a gut punch. And hopefully is a gut punch to the presumed heterosexual audiences that are now discovering it.
Right, exactly. But yeah, so I agree. It's a wonderful film, and it does cover a lot of information on it, and it's like these people are truly giving you like a kind of telescope into their world, and that is definitely the good part about the film, is that it is edited and presented thoughtfully, ultimately.
I would have loved to have see the conversations though about how she got into those spaces, like how like I would have loved to have been like, so the conversations in these houses are like, really, this girl wants to come in here and what?
Right, exactly. And like, what did that crew look like, and like how? Yeah, I just feel like I feel like she not only had to go into those spaces, but she had to listen, which is another thing that I find nice about, is that she listened to what they were saying, and nothing is presented like out of context, really. I mean, I'm not sure that the full obviously we're not conscious of what the whole conversation was, and maybe if we heard the whole conversation, things would seem different or whatever.
Right.
But I mean, as far as like what actually happens in a ball and what you see happening in a ball, like it's presented as I have seen it happen at a ball, like firsthand. You know, things are.
It looks authentic.
Yeah, it does. It looks it is extremely authentic, especially when like there's that like the opulence, you own everything, bitches are on the side screaming like that, like when there's that mother, or she's probably a mother or a father or the head of a house, she comes onto the floor and she's just like, no, did you see that? What did she, like when they're all arguing with the judges, they go up to the judging panel, they're arguing, they're angry. There's
this great scene where the buttons are on the wrong side. So they're saying, does it count as menswear?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And like,
I mean, also like as much as Denny Livingston, the director, I don't want to say made a name for herself, but utilized it as a platform. I gotta say, we walk away knowing Pepper LaBeija and Dorian Corey far more than we will ever remember Jenny Livingston.
Yeah, exactly. We remember so much more. It was so much more than who did it. You know what I mean? I'm
very curious what would be like if that was made now.
Oh my God. First of all, the editing process would be strenuous, because those balls, you think drag time is bad when the show starts 30 minutes late? Those balls, like, slated to begin at 8 o'clock, first category, not walk till 1 a.m. Like, that is fully what you are prepared for when you walk into the room. They have the bar all night, and they plan to use it all night. Like, it is a hoot, a holler, and an exhaustion. But damn if it's not fun. Like, it is one of the most exciting, exhilarating, fun times you will ever have at a nightclub. It's so good.
So let's shift to New York.
Mm-hmm.
You come here. What was the impetus for you coming to New York?
I came for my lover. So my partner, Leela, she lived in New York, and we were long distance for a year. And then at the end of that year, I moved here. Yeah, instead of the other way around. because I was like, well, don't come to Orlando. Why would you come to Orlando?
Had you ever been to New York before?
Not before. The first time I came to New York actually was Afropunk, which 3 years ago, which is when we officially started dating.
Okay.
So that was the first time.
Did you come here saying, "Oh, and I'm going to be working"? By the way, like, did you know that going in, or did that happen sort of independently of you moving here?
I mean, I knew that I would continue doing drag and burlesque. I didn't know how or when it was going to start taking off, but I was really lucky when I moved here that we had friends who were doing shows and were happy to book me or help me get gigs. And Leela's been super supportive in that we go to shows, she comes to shows, she has been to the shows at that point. So we were out a lot and we were going to see things, and she encouraged me to like talk to people. Like a few of my first gigs were with our good friend Kristen Corvette, who at the time did a festival called Legacy of the Witch. I did that twice as a kitten and then as a performer. And then Sweet Lorraine, we were always at Sweet Lorraine shows, and Sweet Lorraine has always been super good to me. She booked me as a kitten, as a go-go, as a performer in multiples of her shows. She's absolutely fantastic. So those are really like those were the springboards for my career here. So I've been super lucky and super privileged to be able to kind of connect with people who do great things.
When you were beginning burlesque, what is that like as a trans non-binary person? Or at least you as a trans non-binary person. What is that? How do you construct an act that feels right for you when you're, I don't know, presenting a specific way or in front of an audience that has expectations and all that, and they may walk away with the complete wrong implication of what they're seeing. How do you construct that?
So the first part is compartmentalization. Being naked in front of a room of people who are not queer specifically takes a lot of work for me. And it's a lot of like compartmentalizing the part of your brain that's like, you don't look like you right now. Like when say my chest is out or something like that, which is like the main piece of my dysphoria comes from my chest. So in moments like that, it's very, you must calm down. And it's just like patting that voice down until you're fine. And then what's really good is having a support system that reinforces like, oh no, you're good. Oh no, you're like, coming off stage and hearing people refer to you how you are supposed to be referred to. So that's the biggest piece of doing that. Constructing an act, I kind of have to construct an act in spite of my dysphoria as opposed to like with it in mind, because otherwise I probably would never take my clothes off. So I just do it. I create my act as if everybody in the room already has an understanding. Because otherwise I just feel like I would never leave, like I would just never be able to do what I do. And that goes for like emotional vulnerability as well, because a lot of my acts include or a large part of it is kind of letting the audience see a certain amount of emotional rawness in what I do. So yeah, I just have to create my acts as if everybody in the room already knows the deal and appreciates that. That's how I have to do it, or else it just becomes sort of a spiral. And there are obviously always harder days than others, but this is what I want to do, and I'm lucky enough to have the mental energy and the support system to be able to do it without heavy consequences emotionally. I'm sure there's some people who some days just have to call out of a gig and be like, that just can't happen tonight. I can't do that. I again am lucky enough that hasn't happened to me, knock on wood. And I can I've surrounded myself with people who are very, very supportive and very understanding. Yeah. When
you are constructing an act, a lot of times I think there is an expectation that a trans performer or a non-binary performer, however those intersect, that a lot of the acts will have to do with that subject matter.
Right.
That a lot of times, while they are individual acts, they're pieces that are really reflective of gender commentary or coming out all over again. I've seen a few performers where they come out over and over and over again, and for their benefit, it's usually a unique and interesting piece per explanation, but it just seems like that can be potentially exhausting. Do you feel that you are also at a point where you give yourself permission to do acts where they have nothing to do with that, and your body is your body?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. I only have 2 or 3 acts at this point that include an amount of coming out like that, and honestly, it's mostly my king acts. My king acts are usually an explanation, which is why I don't do it as much anymore, because it is emotionally exhausting to not only consistently, it's part of the reason I don't do as many king acts anymore is because I feel like there has to be an explanation, and it is exhausting, and it's very close to the vest. You know what I mean? It feels like I'm just performing as myself on stage, and it just feels like I'm getting on, me, Matthew, as opposed to Satay, is getting on stage, and is a very, it's just a consistent here I am, here I am, and that is hard to do. To do. When I am in a more androgynous or femme persona, it feels like a put on thing that can just exist, sans me at any point, So yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like that kind of performance has a huge, huge, huge place, especially in drag performance, because it kind of gives, it gives color to the community in a way that says, not everyone you see is going to be what exactly you think they are, and you have to continue to break down that conversation.
And also just determine, why do you think they are? There's exactly. A lot to unpack on your own side there as well.
Exactly, kind of just continuing to destroy the binary conversation in your mind, and that's what those kind of performances do. So yeah, I do think that has a huge place. But for me, as you said, it is very exhausting, and I am at a place in my career where I can just present my art however it is, and however I'm feeling that night, I can just kind of use that and exist without having to explain consistently. I don't feel like I have to do that anymore, and for a long time, I felt like I had to continue to explain that, specifically in Orlando and Tampa. It was this consistent oh, I must.
Yes. Oh, by the way, this is what you're
exactly.
seeing.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, like I said, a lot of the acts that I did then haven't been revisited, and I tried to make one new one recently. I did a song called "Real Thing" by Tune Yards, and it was just a lot different for me. It felt awkward, and like I wouldn't say it came off awkward, but like, you know, sometimes you do things and it feels great. You know, I'm sure you can identify with this. Like, sometimes you do a performance and it feels great and it feels organic and it feels like, oh yeah, I could do this. I could continue to do this act. This act is great. Where I did that act and it was a new act. You know, I'd only done it once before and I was kind of like, oh, let's revisit this. And when I did it, I was just like, ooh, that didn't sit right with me. Like, I feel like that was not, I shouldn't have to keep doing that. Like, and at this point I have enough to do other things that I just don't have to keep doing that.
When did you finally give yourself permission to explore the feminine? Because as you said, when you first started, you were like, nope, gotta stick to this side. When did you start, you know, opening different crayon boxes?
My very first hair aesthetic was my first femme persona, and that little, I'll call her a lady for now. That little lady, she came out about a year before I moved from Orlando, and she was a drag queen. And I was like, oh, this is different. So that's when I started kind of saying to myself, everybody knows that I'm trans now, and I can do this without people asking me these questions. And that was a good feeling. I can't think of what year that was, but it had to be around the age of 20, probably.
Okay.
Because that's when I started doing burlesque. So it had to be around that time when I would have started doing that.
Do you remember what your first act was where you did strip?
Yes.
What was that like?
Different. It was different.
Well, how did you decide, and what was the right moment for that to? Because obviously that's not something that just happens on stage. You have to come to the gig. You have to know what you're doing. You have to have been booked for it, or at least have some permission for it. How did you approach that?
Oh God, how did I approach that? I might even have the video of that performance actually somewhere. What song did I did? So the song that I did was Girl Anachronism. The Dresden Dolls.
Yes.
Yeah. I was in a cheap Amazon long white wig. I and a pin in the circus stripes. What are those was it negligee? What is it called?
What the?
Like a little
lingerie moment. Yeah,
yeah,
a little negligee. Yeah,
moment.
A little robe or a negligee. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I had my ruffle panties underneath, a white bra.
You already could have been in the first White Elephant shows. You already. That was our look. That was what we were doing.
Yeah. So my little white bra, my little ruffle panties, some cheap ass thigh highs and mismatched.
Yep. Were they striped?
No, they weren't striped this time.
Oh.
It was white fishnet. Because I had the stripes taken care of on the negligee, you know.
There we are.
You know what I mean? I had it. And what else did I? Oh God. And so yeah, and I had these cheap pasties from Amazon that did not form to fit your breasticle area.
Mm. Were they the sequin heart-shaped? Those are a classic.
No, they were just a flat strawberry sticker, basically, with sequins on it.
Ooh.
It was different. And I had just started dating Leela. And so I sent, I was just like practicing in the middle of my little studio apartment, throwing my clothing all over the place. It was really like we were talking about Paris is Burning earlier, it was really just if you shoot an arrow high enough and it goes, like if you shoot an arrow and it goes real high, good for you. Moment, like, let's just hope. Yeah. And so, yeah, and I did it at the now Southern Night in Orlando, and I just decided I'm gonna go get naked. I'm going to go do it. And there had been a precedent set for burlesque at this drag club already. And I had been booked, and I was just like, they don't ask you what you're doing beforehand. They're just like, come do this because you're doing it for free. Because I was so new. And you just came and you made your tips and you hoped. Yeah, I just decided that it was time, and I was supposed to do another burlesque show very soon after that, so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to take this time to get comfortable with being naked in front of people. And so I just threw something together and did it.
I'm Commander Shepard, and this is...
Wait, you can't be Commander Shepard. I'm Commander Shepard.
Okay, we're both Commander Shepard, and we're here to tell you about our favorite podcast on the Citadel.
Do you like narrative video games with deeply developed characters?
What about exploring complicated moral quandaries, like romancing aliens?
Then you should be listening to Reignite,
a show where two friends take a 10-year-old video game way too seriously.
and sometimes not seriously enough.
I'm Commander Shepard.
And I'm Commander Shepard.
We should go.
When you meet someone, and it's someone that you feel safe and comfortable with, so you can be as open about everything as you need to be, and they ask, so how would you describe yourself as a performer and what you're doing now? What are some of the words that you would formulate?
To what my aesthetic and performance is now?
Basically what you're doing now.
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing up there?
Yeah. What are you doing up there, kid? I'll answer this as if someone in my family is asking, and then I'll answer it as if someone who I don't have anything beholden to. So if my family's asking, I'm a performer. I do drag for sure. Yeah, I do. I put on pretty wigs and pretty makeup, and I put on a little show for people, and sometimes I host, which is really fun. I get to work with a lot of my friends, and I'm pretty successful at it at this point. So that's what my family is asking.
Mm-hmm.
If just someone I'm a friend with now is asking. Yeah, I do drag and burlesque. It's really fun. I get to work with a lot of sex-positive organizations. I work with a lot of sex-positive parties. I host this party called Primal Scream. We have a kinky dungeon, which is really part of my like mission statement is to really be sex-positive and fun. And I get to talk about sex with tens of people every night. Every night, and I really enjoy it and love it, and I get to just spread queer love to the world by taking off my clothes, and it's a lot of fun.
Is that now basically how you do most acts now? Is it mostly a stripping affair?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
From time to time, it's strictly drag. Like I do have. Like, I feel like when people ask me, all I can think of is my drag acts. Like, if someone's like, oh, I'd love to book you for this thing, I'm always like, yes, please do. I do drag. Like, I don't say immediately I do burlesque, mostly because my femme persona feels more like drag than burlesque, but then I realize, oh, I'm getting naked. I could probably do, yes, it's drag-lesque.
Drag-lesque. That's easy.
Yeah,
done.
So... yeah, it takes a minute for me to like calibrate to that, but yeah, most of my acts do involve stripping at this point, or some form of like bearing a part of my body. It might not be full stripping, but definitely part of like bearing my body in a certain amount.
Now you've moved into the production side of things. Had you produced anything in Orlando?
No. Not even a little bit.
What facilitated you deciding to produce here?
Well, I have always wanted to produce. And I got the opportunity the first time to do Post-Verbal. That was the first night I ever co-produced with. Shout out to Angelica Frankenstein. And we had this really cute party. It was B&A night last year. And we booked a lot of people I'm happy to call friends now. And we just got like a taste for it. And I was like, yes, this is exactly like, it reaffirmed for me that was always what I wanted to do when I started making shows, be it theater or movies, because I went to school, I'm almost done, but go to school for cinema studies, and my end goal, ultimately, like my be-all, end-all is wanting to have a production company of either theater or films, and now it extends to drag, and so it just reaffirmed for me that this creating shows and creating this kind of stuff has always been what I wanted to do. And so when I got that opportunity, it just reaffirmed for me that yeah, that was what I wanted from any profession I may have taken up. So that was nice.
What is it? How do you construct a show? Who do you look at into the vast world of really fabulous performers that we are really blessed to have in New York? Who are some of the people that you say working with them is the best? Like, who would you jump at the chance to work with in one of your shows?
Oh, like people I haven't worked with yet, or people I like, who comes to mind first?
You can give me a mix if you wish.
So like people who come to mind when I'm first either trying to make a show or booking a show. God Complex, huge friend of mine. Like the moment we met, we kind of clicked and hit it off, and we've been friends for a year, which I realized when it hit April. We've been friends for a year. And we just really mind meld when it comes to things. And so God Complex is definitely someone I love working with. Chevy Lace, who is my drag son. Again, someone I immediately work with and who I'm producing Grim with at this point. We work super well together. We have like really tackled this like head on and made like a really great product. I'm really happy that they came into my life. We work intensely good together. Other people that I like to book, I haven't necessarily produced with, but I love to work with, Lady Bedbug, Rara Darling. Those definitely come to mind first. Anytime I'm doing a project, I'm like, can they be in this project? Like, is there a place I can put them? Because they're definitely family and definitely extremely talented individuals. Angelica Sunday, Minnie Horowitz, Foxy Bella Freak, Comrade Barbie, who's newer to the scene but is really doing fantastic work. Yeah, those are a few people that I just really, really love working with and could pretty much ask me to do something, and as long as I'm available and free, I would probably do it for them. So yeah, those are people that I love to work with. People that I would love to work with, eventually, and think are just doing extremely fantastic work. Oh gosh, there's so many. I love Pearls Daly. She's absolutely fantastic. Such a sweetheart.
Yeah.
I've worked with them, but I've never been able to book them for something, not yet anyway. The Brides of Burlesque.
Also fabulous.
Yeah, I kitten for them often for oh my gosh, Eat Me. But I've never been able to book them personally, which is something that I hope to be able to do within this next year, producing wise. Quite honestly, I feel like we don't whenever we see each other, it's either like
passing ships.
Yeah, exactly. Truly passing ships. But I do absolutely love working with you as well.
Oh, thank you. Same.
And I would love to have the opportunity to book you, Pearl Noir. Lovely woman, absolutely insane and insanely talented. I love her a lot. Like those are just a few, but those are the people who come to mind like immediately. Like those are people I would definitely. Oh, Calamity Chang also. Yeah, Calamity Chang. Yeah, if I ever have the chance to book those people, those are definitely people who are on the short list.
Well, before we close, I know you have a show tonight, and I'll let you get yourself together.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you setting aside some time and chatting with me.
Of course.
What do you hope to see in the world as we move on? It's already, as we said, we're just hitting upon spring. Yeah. What is your goals, either personally or universally, that you would like to see in the world?
The universe.
Yeah.
For me personally, I really just want to create more. I want to be blessed with like the following and the people in my life that will only boost towards that goal, and I'm able to boost them towards their goals as well. I really want to be able to create with this vast amount of talent, like you said, we have in New York, and people I do know, people I don't know. I want to bring all of their talent out, and I want to bring it out in a way that makes us all feel great about it. Whether that be in producing or hosting or just being part of things with people who I really enjoy working with and boosting up. I want to see more variance in the identities presented on stage as well as we're doing. I think we could do better. So I would love to see more more POC people. POC people, that's a lot. More people of color on stage. I want to see more trans individuals on stage. I want to see more trans people of color on stage. I want to hear these voices more. And I want to facilitate that as a workshop between us all to kind of have those identities boosted up as well. Whether it be me or in other shows or helping other shows be that, and, world peace. No. No,
I mean, that'd be cool too. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I truly just want to see positivity boosted up in this community so much more. And, less pinpointing on negativity and sadness, you know what I mean? Unless it's for a performance, make your statements. But I definitely just want to see this creativity blossom as opposed to stymied for whatever reason. That's what I would like to see more of in the universe.
Well, thank you, Satay. I will see you around, and I will include in the footnotes all the ways that people can get in touch with you and keep up with what's going on.
Yeah.
And, keep killing it.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that we finally got to have this moment.
Yeah. Well, more moments to come.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
right.
Folks at home, you've been listening to WEBurlesque, the podcast. I have been talking with the delightful Satay BonTemps, and check in with you later. Goodbye. Viktor Devonne, and you've been listening to WEBurlesque, the podcast. Thank you very much for your continued support in this, our second season. I would especially like to thank our Patreon supporters. That would be Stormageddon, Rob, Kelly Blue, Drew, Michelle, and anyone else who wants to support. Please go to patreon.com/WEBurlesque or check out the footnotes of this very episode. You can continue to support, even if you do not have money, by rating and review any of the episodes on any of the platforms that you happen to stumble upon. It really does help. It really does mean a lot to me as well. If you would like to check out when White Elephant Burlesque is in your neck of the woods, please go to WeBurlesque.com. You check us out on Instagram at WeBurlesque, on Facebook at White Elephant Burlesque Society. It's everywhere, and I really do appreciate it. I will catch you next time.